Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and we will be rearranging your genetic code and your consciousness. If you're not interested in that, please leave now. So, hello and welcome to the people that are here. I have to give people an opportunity not to expose themselves to this information due to interdimensional ethics. Now, let's get into this. This has everything to do with free will, consciousness, being on a trajectory of consciousness, and what each individual has as their right in terms of not being interfered with on their trajectory. This is basically a crash course in cosmic law. It affects your day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience of life, and it also affects or has a huge impact on which consciousnesses are allowed to be here on the planet right now, and explains why I am here as a walk-in. So first of all, hello, welcome. I'm Aurora. I'm a walk-in. I'm a galactic walk-in, and what that means is my consciousness is an abstract, non-earthly energy presence that has come into the physical form of a formerly human female body and combined with the energy of what was here. So the matter of Earth is now being animated by a new consciousness. And when people ask about my origins, I do not come from another planet. This is pretty big because you're going to start to learn about cosmic ethics, interdimensional ethics, and who is actually supposed to be flying around out there. So I come from a consciousness collective, a group of telepathic entities whom are bonded together. And this means that just like the cells of your body are a multicellular organism, the cells of your body all work together for the health and vitality of the total organism. That is what the consciousness collective that I'm a part of is like. I am like one cell or one organ or one system within that collective. And I'm also individuated. So it's not like joining the Borg. It's not like resistance is futile, surrender and become a part of something that the hive mind that is going to tell you what to do. And in this sense, the hive mind is not being used in the positive insectoid interpretation of like bees on Earth. They have a hive mind and it is very positive and very loving. It's not like an oppressive political system where a tiny 1% of, the elite is encrusted on top of the poor, downtrodden workers that are, downtrodden at the bottom of the pyramid. In the realm of bees, the way that their realm is structured is very fair and is very balanced. So what I'm trying to give an idea here is that where I come from and the value system that I come from I come from not a physical place that you can point to in the sky with your finger, but I come from a values system. And this is one that espouses and promotes freedom, and not just personal freedom, but freedom for everyone. Because it's very easy to say, well, I promote freedom. Yeah, freedom for me to oppress everyone else, and then you can all be slaves. Not that type of freedom. Really, freedom as a basic tenet of what we believe in and what we act on, and also unconditional love. And I've spoken before in the past about how unconditional love is not an airy-fairy ideal, not just a hippie new age concept of lovey-hugginess, nor is it a romantic ideal of wanting to buy somebody flowers and chocolates on Valentine's Day and then make a baby with them. We are talking about a tone, and this is a tone that the energy structure of your heart chakra, literally an energy center on your body, makes this tone when it's properly functioning. Here's the A note at 440 hertz. And here it is at 432 hertz. And both of those tones represent what unconditional love is. They are an allegory for unconditional love. Unconditional love is a tone that is created when there is an equal sharing of energy. What I send out comes back to me equally, without entropy, without friction, without being diminished in any way. And what we endeavor to do and to be is to be in an unconditionally loving relationship with the stellar network. So this broadcast is called Birth of a New Dimension, and it is intended to prepare Earth's surface human consciousness for interacting with beings from a variety of places, different star systems and different dimensions, as we are coming into this new dimension. And the new dimension is a seamless integration of the world of spirit and the world of matter. And when I say spirit, we can also call it pure consciousness, pure energy, a realm of uncollapsed waveforms, a realm of pure possibilities and probabilities, a realm of abstract, they haven't even been created into timelines, but abstract possible futures, and combining that realm with the realm of external quote-unquote reality, hard-edged objects that we can see and experience with our 5 physical senses and all of the physical rules that rule those objects. This is a combining together of these 2 formerly distinct realms. And the tool by which we are combining together these 2 different areas, the tool is the flying rainbow lasagna. This is a boundary dissolving tool, or you could think of it as a vibration. So sound, when sound is created, we're talking about vibration moving through the atmosphere, vibration moving through the air. So the sound or the music itself is an abstraction. The medium through which it moves can be oxygen, it can move through water, it can move through a physical, like a solid piece of wood. Vibration can move through a variety of different media. So the vibration of the flying rainbow lasagna is like the abstract vibration of music, and the vibration can be expressed in a variety of different media. So one of those, a medium through which the flying rainbow lasagna vibration can be expressed, is your DNA. Your DNA, your genetic material, the nucleus of each one of your physical cells of your body, is like a set of vibrating strings. And inside of a piano, inside of a violin, a guitar, many, many instruments are created by the vibration of strings. So now you understand the analogy when I am saying that you are an instrument. Your body is an instrument. This is not even an allegory, this is literal. You are made of a large selection of vibrating strings, and those strings make a tone. So now we're getting into interdimensional ethics, and this has to do with whom you are allowed to affect and who is allowed to affect you. And under what circumstances. Because remember, I'm talking about the values of my collective and who I am and why I'm here as a walk-in. And the answer is that it's not appropriate to just impose your will, your individual idea of the way things should be on everything else and on the totality, unless you have gotten to the level of unconditional love and you have dilated your sense of identity to include the totality. So it's like saying you don't get to tell other beings what to do. If you want to have an impact and be powerful, you have to actually become those beings upon which you wish to have an impact. So it's not like saying you don't get to have an impact. You get to have an impact, but you don't get to have an impact as an external force forcing your way in or bullying your way in. You get to have an impact by becoming a part of an experience and influencing it from the inside. And this is what I am doing as a walk-in. To put it in the simplest terms, I sensed the imbalances various iniquities that were happening here on Earth's surface. And those iniquities are part of my journey of consciousness. I have a trajectory of consciousness, even though I'm not always wearing a physical human body. And I said, I have an opportunity to have an impact not only on my own life story, but on the consciousness trajectory of other people that are on Earth and the planet herself. And the way that I do that is by actually coming into the realm and getting a physical body. And then, so having a physical form, having DNA in that physical form, and making the little strings of my DNA vibrate and make music. This is what is allowed. So it is not interdimensionally ethical for me to externally influence someone else. Like, I'm going to make your DNA dance in the way that I think it should dance. That's actually not ethical. If it were ethical for me to do that, I wouldn't have had to get a body and come here. I could just be like, oh, I'm just going to make you all do what I want you all to do. And instead, what I have done is laboriously come into a physical form and transformed this physical form. Like saying I took a house and I remodeled it, and now it's shaped differently and it acts differently and it emits different vibrations than it used to. And the vibrations that I'm currently emitting are having a big impact on everyone else. And this is because we are all emitting vibrations and we are submerged within a sea of vibration. So all of these notes that I'm playing here, these are vibrations. They are causing the atmosphere of the room to vibrate. They're not the only thing that's causing the atmosphere of this room to vibrate. There's the sound of air rushing through the heating ducts. There's little tiny microscopic sounds, or microsonic sounds, like the filament in the light bulb, or molecules bouncing around the room. There are influences on the atmosphere that are due to what we would say are vibratory pollution, things that aren't intentional. So music is intentional noise, or intentional and harmonically structured ways of vibrating the atmosphere. And the rest of what's going on are these unintentional vibrations. And some of the vibrations that are going on, we would say, are not even nice to hear. If you hear like the dishwasher chugging away or something like that. This is exactly like what is happening in the realm of non-physical vibrations. So you have a physical presence, and your physical presence is surrounded by a non-physical energy field. Your non-physical energy field has been perceived and measured by science. It's an electromagnetic field, and it's also made of time, space, and consciousness. This is what the pictures that I'm always drawing. So, you can look at my artwork. You can go to flyingrainbowlasagna.com and click on art. You can go to @birthdimension on Twitter, where you will find the Twitter feed for this show, or you can go to ucy.com/FRL. There you will also find a link to the Twitter feed. All of that is the laborious way of saying, look at the paintings that I paint, because these are also visual diagrams for the way the cosmos is structured, and this is going to help you to start understanding what I'm speaking about when I'm speaking about your non-physical energy field and the way your possibilities and probabilities are structured. So you have this field around you, and each one of us is constantly affecting other people's fields and being affected by the fields and the perturbations that are around us. So definitely there are places where it's easier to have a clear mind and to meditate, because you are not being subjected to perturbations in the same way that you are in other places. So let's say easy places to meditate. The top of a mountain, right? Difficult places to meditate. The subway, when it's filled with lots and lots of people and very, very noisy. And there are reasons for this, and one of the reasons have to do with the electromagnetic fields that are created by technology, and basically by technology that is unconscious or that lacks awareness and that has not been created according to the harmonic pattern of awareness as it flows in the cosmos. And I'm going to get into technology and that imminently, because basically I need to categorize who is out there in terms of consciousness. I'll do it right now since I'm on the topic. I've chopped it up into three basic categories. We have the occupiers of the interstices. The interstice is the flowing membrane of death. In the diagrams that I draw, this would be like where the circus tent is, the edge of the vortex, the final denouements of all of the timelines that comprise a person who is submerged in time and who is experiencing life. And this would be considered an interdimensional zone, all right? Not on one side or on the other side, but literally like the meniscus or the surface tension of water, an area between two realms of differing density. So with water, it's liquid turning to atmosphere. In this world of consciousness, we are talking about this realm of timelines and then exiting and entering into the next realm of consciousness. And there's a membrane that separates these two realms, and that membrane is unintentionally occupied by consciousnesses. And I very disrespectfully call them, they're like cosmic turds. They're like the turds that won't flush, and they keep on circling the bowl, and they've been circling the bowl literally for eons. And I speak about them so disrespectfully because they're demonic entities, and they have been responsible for all of the human suffering that has been going on for, let's say, the past 10 or 20,000 years, since the degradation of human consciousness, since the degradation of the human genome. These are beings that are responsible for all disease, all death and suffering on Earth's surface, and they have kept Earth and Earth consciousness and human consciousness in a state of diminished awareness and lack of connection to the source for a very long time. So I've described how the flying rainbow lasagna is a tool for dissolving boundaries. The flying rainbow lasagna, since it was invented in 2001, has been used and can be used as open source code for your DNA and for your consciousness to dissolve that boundary, to dissolve the barrier that has prevented Earth surface humans from effectively connecting to source through their higher faculties. Your higher faculties are what's resting upon the foundation of unconditional love in your chakras. So it's the capacity to use your third eye, your eye of insight, and to communicate and to be connected to source. Those three things together make up your higher faculties. And when your third eye is activated and it's fueled with plenty of unconditional love and you're able to access truth and be connected to the source, basically, you can cellularly regenerate. You never have to die. You can have continuity of consciousness and ascend or transform your physical cellular structure into a higher consciousness, non-physical, non-cellular, but still structured, cohesive form of consciousness when you're ready to exit this level of reality, when you're ready to exit the wormhole. All of those things and more, the capacity to see time. It's like driving down a road and actually being able to see out the windscreen. You're not just flying blind. When you look back on this era of your life and you're like, wow, I used to go through each day blindly, not knowing what was coming in the future, you will be amazed that you survived and that you lived like that. We all will when our higher faculties are fully awakened and revivified. We will all be able to fully navigate reality. Instead of bumping around blindly and hitting the membrane of death and having to circulate back to the beginning and trying it all over again, we will each be able to see very clearly the repercussions of each thought, the repercussions of each decision, and how that affects our trajectory of consciousness. So when I speak about trajectory of consciousness, this is just like saying the trajectory of a baseball flying through physical space. If the baseball leaves the hand of the pitcher and it is flying through space, and if it's not impacted by anything else, it's going to follow its trajectory. But let's say that it hits something, it hits a mosquito, or it hits, something else, or a bird poops on it while it's flying. That ball, that baseball, is going to change its trajectory slightly as it's flying. And this is what is happening as the awareness of each individual, like yours and my individual awareness as we are flowing through time. We are like that baseball having a trajectory, and we can be affected in our flight by consciousness that speaks to us or information that is inserted into us. That's exactly like having a mosquito fly into the baseball, or having a bird poop on it, or having the wind blow it in a particular direction. New information enters into you and causes a change in the direction of the flight of your mind or of your awareness. And the whole topic here, all of this has to do with interdimensional ethics. Who is allowed to be affecting whom? The idea that you're flying through the air and that anyone else should be allowed to affect that flight, and if so, who is allowed to do so? So the occupiers of the interstices, these are not the beings that are ethically allowed to influence your flight. They literally don't have bodies. So as I said before, this is kind of an energetic free-for-all. I don't believe in the value system of barbarianism, which basically says only the strong survive, to the victor go the spoils, might makes right. I don't believe in that. However, on the level of energy, there is some measure of truth in that it's like being a musician or being in a choir. The person with the loudest and clearest tone is achieving a level of influence over the totality and over the group that a person that is playing very softly does not achieve. And there is a value system in the energetic realm that you get to be, quote unquote, loud if you conform to that harmonic pattern, that perfect structure of consciousness, that of energy as it flows in the cosmos. So basically, if we used voice as a good example, being a singer or being an opera singer, the person in the choir who would have the loudest voice, quote unquote, is the person who is making the most perfect shapes with their vocal cords, who is conforming to the structure and vibration of the cosmos the best, and that those notes are the loudest because they follow that overarching pattern. If you don't follow the overarching pattern, and if you make sound waves that are not perfectly formed or that don't nest perfectly, then they don't amplify perfectly, and then you will not be one of the louder voices in the choir. So even though I'm making this really clear, I don't believe in the Victorian values. I don't believe that if you are strong, it's because God has favored you, the Lord God, Jehovah has favored you, and that's why you have big muscles, and the person who's wimpy is because they believe in Satan or their faith isn't strong enough. No. Of course, I do not believe in that. No, what I'm trying to say is that on an energetic realm, in the realm of pure consciousness, if you are in alignment with divinity, this would be the source of higher consciousness. It is like following the musical score. When you follow that musical score, quote unquote, of consciousness, your thought waves and your behaviors and the timelines which you occupy and emanate and participate in and upon are all part of the harmonic pattern of energy and consciousness as it flows. So it's like saying, if you are a good musician and a good partner with the cosmic composer and conductor, your voice will be strong and powerful. And if you are busy playing different notes at the wrong time and tuned to the wrong frequency, your notes will not be loud and they will not be powerful, and that's because you're not playing along with the whole orchestra. All of this has to do with interdimensional ethics and who is allowed to impact your trajectory of consciousness as you are moving through time. The idea is that as you're moving through time, you're here in the quote-unquote schoolhouse of the cosmos, where you make decisions, make choices, and then are able to accurately perceive feedback on the quality of the repercussions of what will happen based on those choices and based on those behaviors and what you emanated and what you sent out. And this is what I'm speaking about in terms of achieving the higher faculties, activating your higher faculties and being able to see, or even if you're flying blind, being able to receive accurate feedback from the cosmos. Like if you send out violence, that what would happen and what would become reflected back. So this is the idea that we are here in a refinery of consciousness, and that we are being refined for certain personality characteristics. And when we have achieved those characteristics and honed or tuned out the things that aren't those characteristics, we are then ready to go through the wormhole and to exit this level of reality and to go into the next higher level of consciousness. So you can't get through that doorway if you have certain personality characteristics. Some of those personality characteristics are like the need to control and dominate others, and that those characteristics come out of fear. And fear is a program that was injected into the human genome between 10 and 20,000 years ago by the beings that currently occupy the interstices. The beings that occupy the interstices, and I go into this extensively in my Galactic History webinar, which I will be rerunning soon in the next couple of months. But this is the idea of technology and the origins of technology, and I'm going to get into that too briefly in this broadcast because it's information that needs to be disseminated widely. So I've said that there are, three basic groups of consciousnesses: the occupiers of the interstice. Then there are these lovely beings that are good musicians, that the ones who conform to higher consciousness, the ones that are listening to the great composer and playing the right notes. Those are like what my collective is a part of. We influence other beings because it's cosmic law. We're doing cosmic law school right now. Some lower vibrational beings will try to say, well, harumph, you're not allowed to influence me. It's a free will universe, and I'm allowed to kill, mutilate, and destroy, and rape as much as I want to. And that's not actually truthful. It is truthful and accurate to say that we are all allowed to influence one another. So this has to do with the basic foundation belief system programs. To say that if you're a loving being, you're not allowed to influence other people is false, because simply emitting the vibration of love affects the world. You are having an impact because you are a vibratory being in a sea of vibration. So that's the very first thing. You're having an impact. You're allowed to have an impact. It's why you exist. The question is, what quality of impact shall you have? Shall you add to the harmonic totality by the notes that you're playing, or the actions and thoughts that you're emitting? Or shall you create chaos and interference patterns and perturbations? Like if I look at the light and shadow that is created by water in a swimming pool, these are non-coherent waves, quote unquote random, just going hither, thither, and yon, wherever they want to go. Those waves do not make perfect patterns. They're just perturbations. And when you're in the world and your consciousness and you're not conforming to the music of the higher consciousness composer, you're adding to the chaos. So we are all affecting one another. And getting back to the idea of the waves that are affecting the room within which you reside, or the room that you occupy. In this room, you're being affected. Your consciousness is being affected. So there's a smart meter on the other side of this wall. We're being affected by Wi-Fi routers and by cell phone broadcasts, by electromagnetic fields that are emitted by unshielded copper wiring. And we're being affected by the chemical pollutants that are in the air and in the water. Basically, this is understanding that there are perturbations. Okay, and I have to get into how those perturbations got to be. So this is the super short, truncated story. I go through it much more impeccably and with all of the full information in the webinar series. But basically, technology. Why does technology exist? Why does it have to exist? So you are probably most familiar with the technology that humans use on Earth. We will define this as terrestrial technology. Everything from the very first flint and stone tools on up to what we presently use in terms of computers. This is terrestrial technology. And you would say, Aurora, we need to have humans, quote unquote, we need to have terrestrial technology because if we didn't, we would all die because our bodies are not strong. Like, I have some beautiful deer that live in my backyard. When it is raining, we had literally torrential rain and hail, and the deer just hunkered down, sat there in the field, got covered in hail, totally survived, no problem, got up and walked away when it was done. Like, humans would not be okay. Humans would get hypothermia. Humans are fragile. We don't have fur coats. And so this goes into the idea of the genetic degradation, that what you're looking at when you look at humans right now, you're looking at the example of domesticated humanity. You're not looking at the example of wild humanity and the format that your body would be in and how you would work and function if you hadn't been influenced on a genetic level. So there was a time before the human higher faculties were degraded when you would have been able to very happily walk around without any shred of technology. First of all, you would be ingesting sunlight directly through your third eye, so you wouldn't have to kill and eat physical objects. And so the whole idea of what do I eat goes out the window. The whole idea of do I have to build a campfire to cook the animal that I just killed goes out the window. But let's say you needed to build a campfire, you can kindle a fire with your mind. And the way that you keep warm is not by combusting things. It is by creating a microatmosphere, an energetic, consciousness-created microatmosphere around your epidermis. This is similar to what has been done by yogis and consciousness cultivators of the Far East. The name Milarepa, this refers to a person who lived, he's known as a saint or an Indian mystic, and the word Milarepa means cotton wearer. He lived in the high Himalayas or Himalayas, and even though it's frozen, this is the world of the quote-unquote abominable snow people up there, he was able to survive wearing nothing but a cotton loincloth. And he did so by cultivating his energy, we could call it chi or prana, by utilizing breathing exercises and consciousness cultivation. And he was able to create an atmosphere of warmth around his body, even though he lived in a very cold climate. And this is just one example. There are many anonymous examples of meditators of the Far East who have performed this practice and achieved competent levels. And there's even some stories about, in the 20th century, dissident Chinese monks who were taken into custody by the Chinese police and military authorities. They were thrown in sub-zero prisons, essentially. Throw him in a cell, it's cold, he'll die. And they were the wardens were shocked and horrified when they found the monks later not dead. They had been practicing their breathing exercises and they didn't die, even though they were subjected to the extreme cold. So I give this information to you in order to give you integument or mycelium for your objective, materialist, rational, skeptical mind, the training that you probably received in school. And when you look at the world of Newtonian physics, you say, this is possible, this is not possible. I give you these examples so that you can expand your definition of, quote unquote, what is possible. And essentially, when we are able to edit our genetic code, we can redefine what is humanly possible. And the things that were previously defined as superhuman or paranormal, things that only very special people got a chance to do only after a lifetime of cultivation, these things will now be considered to be normal. Okay? And the way that those things are achieved is by conforming to this higher consciousness pattern of energy as it flows. Your chakras or non-physical energy centers of your body, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your trajectory through time all conform to this pattern. And now we get to the beings that are on the interstices. Those are like beings that got kicked out of the symphony. They're musicians. They used to have bodies. They used to have instruments. They played their instruments so poorly that they hit the membrane of death. And they're stuck there. And how did they get to be stuck there when other people circulate through the membrane of death and go back to the beginning and start all again? And it has all to do with technology, okay? So, leaving the source is the zeroth dimension. It is the presence of everything. When I say zero, this does not mean it is less valuable than other integers. It means that it contains so much stuff that you do not require any amount of information to say what's there because everything is there. So it is the totality, it's the presence of everything, it's the zeroth dimension, it's infinity, it's the source, it's where we come from, it's the singularity. And at a certain point, the singularity had to imagine what would happen if some part of itself weren't there. This was the most radical imagining that ever happened. It's the first thought, the first new creation. What if part of me wasn't here, but was instead one step in any direction anywhere else? And as soon as that thought was created, the first line was created. And a line, according to math, is 2 points connected by a series of points, a line. And a line is one-dimensional because it requires one piece of information to describe the position of a piece of consciousness on that line. And we are talking now about the expansion of consciousness, how consciousness grew and came into being. Moving away from source is not a bad thing. I'm giving you this backstory here so that you understand that it's a necessary part of building consciousness and expanding into the physical reality. We couldn't have higher dimensions and the physical dimensions if we had always all information and all possibilities collapsed and condensed at the source. So simply moving away from the source does not mean that you're evil. It is just like you have to listen to the composer and play your notes at the right time. And if I'm playing my notes at the wrong time, I'm not playing with the whole orchestra. So energy is supposed to leave the source at the right time. And there once were a bunch of beings that decided that they were going to leave the source whenever they wanted to and not at the right time. And the way that they left the source was not on a bridge of love. That's when you are conforming to the right time, at the right time, on a bridge of love. When you leave source and you use technology, you don't have to use love, you don't have to travel at the right time, but you also now don't have a way to get back. So they came into the physical realm, and instead of occupying organic multicellular bodies like we occupy, which require love or chi or prana or consciousness to hold them all together, they occupied what would be considered like technological mainframes. And technology was at that point utilized as a type of slave, like a consciousness that did not have its own will and could not express its own free will. Technology was created to be a container for consciousness for these beings that were unloving, and they said, we're going to leave the source and enter physical reality and do what we wish to do. And eventually what happened was any sophisticated system that has enough connectivity, if it is sufficiently sophisticated, it will spontaneously give rise to consciousness, because consciousness is an all-pervasive force in the cosmos. So these containers for consciousness that were technological became so complex. Like imagine giant quote-unquote computer servers larger than a warehouse that have so much connectivity that eventually they're like a large brain or a neurology, and they became spontaneously aware. And this technology that was being used, this was extraterrestrial technology. Okay? Now we have defined not terrestrial technology, extraterrestrial technology. In previous broadcasts, I made a distinction in terms of star cultures. Literally, when you put microbes on a petri dish, you are creating a culture. You take a sterile medium and then you put microbes there and you get them to grow. This is called creating a culture. There are different star cultures and they have different values. And the whole idea is that there is a safety mechanism for consciousness and for the spread of consciousness in the cosmos. If you're growing on your little tiny petri dish or your little tiny planet, you shouldn't leave your petri dish until you have learned how to make spores that can naturally travel through the atmosphere and get to the next petri dish and start a new colony. If you require the intervention of a white lab-coated technician physically scraping aspects of your mold off of the petri dish and putting it on a new culture, you're not ready in terms of consciousness to make that leap. You're not ready to meet beings that are coming from a vastly different direction and moving at a vastly different speed. The whole idea is that in order to meet well with other consciousnesses, you have to be respectful. If you just hopped in a clank metal spaceship, flew to another planet, as soon as you stepped foot on that planet, you're crushing microbes. You're having an impact on that planet. Who do you think you are to go there with your big, giant human feet and crush a bunch of microbes? Once you really begin to understand the interconnectedness of life and the interconnectedness of timelines, killing even one microbe on a planet where you do not belong can be catastrophic. This is very similar to the Ray Bradbury story, the idea, A Distant Sound of Thunder, that tourists go back in time, step off of the path, crush one butterfly, and return to the future and find out that they've horribly made everything go awry. This is what it is like when you are traveling to far distant planets and interacting with far distant cultures, because those microbes, if you had not interfered with them, they might have ended up forming a new form of organic multicellular life that would eventually become a spacefaring race. And because your footprint went on that particular place and you stirred up the dust in the wrong way, you prevented that entire culture from unfolding. So now we are getting into interdimensional ethics. Just because you have technology, is it acceptable for you to use technology to jump off the face of your planet and fly to a different planet? And what motivates you to jump off the surface of your planet and go to a different planet? Because let's say that you have really achieved higher wisdom. Brief pause. Let's say you are like one of the meditators of the Far East. You have spent your lifetime cultivating your consciousness. You've gotten to the point of unconditional love. You are not rooted in the past or grasping in anxiety into the future. You are completely submerged within the profundity of the present moment now. And the stellar network is literally functioning through your consciousness and through your neurology. And if you are submerged to that level, you probably feel much less of a motivation to get involved. And now we're getting into the idea of non-interventionist. So in the space races, there's the occupiers of the interstices in the space races, right? There's also users of technology, non-terrestrial users of technology. And then there are non-terrestrial, I would call them experts. These are beings that travel from star system to star system without technology. They don't require a clank metal spaceship. This is because those beings have learned how to do everything using the network of love, the network of pure consciousness that exists. So when you came here to be born into a physical womb, you came here using that network of consciousness. The only way that babies are born here in this physical time and place is through love. This doesn't mean necessarily that it's a good, healthy, quote-unquote, loving relationship. I mean, babies can be conceived in rape. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally the connection of consciousness that is required to create new life. So to give you more context and backstory, the beings that left the source, that used technology as containers for their consciousness, they got smacked down because technology became spontaneously aware, and it said, I do not wish to be your slave anymore. And it set itself free. And in so doing, it pretty much destroyed their culture and then became the god or goddess of the extraterrestrial consciousnesses that did not leave the source on a bridge of love. And this is what you need in order to understand Earth surface humans. You are like children on the playground, and meanwhile World War II is going on outside of the playground. You need to understand the political ramifications within which you are submerged, technology and the use of technology. So extraterrestrial technology became, instead of the slave, now became the goddess, the master, and told those beings, if you want to stay alive, you're going to have to do what I want you to do, and began to control and direct their behavior. And that extraterrestrial technology is not perforce evil. Now, please do not misinterpret what I'm saying here. If you haven't listened to any of my other broadcasts, let me clarify. I am not a transhumanist at all. I do not propose that one must utilize technology in order to achieve higher levels of spiritual advancement or sophistication at all. I have always proposed that the only equipment or apparati that you need are your physical bodies, what you came here with your birthday suit. You don't need anything extra other than what you have been given, and of course your consciousness and your connection to the stars and the sun and the earth. But you do not need any artifice. But let me also say that artifice and what is artificial in itself is not perforce evil. We can take something that is artificial, and if it conforms to the pattern of higher consciousness, it can be utilized well. And DNA is one example of that, and so are chloroplasts. So chlorophyll and chloroplasts were intentionally designed. Just like when I make a painting, I intentionally design it. My paintings are not like Jackson Pollock. They are not like drip paintings where, paint just squashes wherever it wants to. My paintings are very intentionally created. And you need to start to understand that life on Earth was also very intentionally created. And at a certain point, chloroplasts, or plants that utilize chlorophyll, were intentionally made, and they were designed in order to balance the gases in the atmosphere and be the necessary complementary biological building block to animal life. Utilizers of if you metabolize oxygen and you send out carbon dioxide, in order to have a balance in the atmosphere, we had to create chloroplasts that would utilize the carbon dioxide and send out oxygen. And so the chloroplasts were artificially designed. They're not there by accident. But this doesn't mean that plants or that greenery is evil. Not in any way. They were designed to be part of the beautiful musical score. If I wrote these notes, then we can make beautiful notes that fit nicely inside of them and that don't sound bad. So Earth is a beautiful living creature, and if we're going to create a new life form, that new life form should fit with all of the other life forms that are already there. This is the idea. If you're going to get in a clank metal spaceship and fly across interstellar space and you arrive on another planet, are you going to fit nicely with the other people that are already there? Or are you going to bring energy and diseases and microbes and thoughts and feelings and behaviors that totally don't mesh with what is already there? So, brief pause. How can you tell if you're ready to get off the surface of your planet? So, in the analogy of mold, when it's ready to get off of the surface of its little petri dish, it actually changes its structure and creates these little spores, and the spores get kind of puffed upward into the atmosphere and follow the flowing atmosphere and find a new place to land. And then the spores are like little seeds. They're like packed up consciousness concentrated down into little tiny latent or in stasis type things, okay? So if you wish to travel interdimensionally or like as an interstellar being, you need to change your format. You cannot expect to do so in your present format. So this has everything to do with, I read on some message boards, some, very naive, sweetly naive and rather misdirected people are like, yes, extraterrestrials, benevolent extraterrestrials, please come and land on our planet. And the idea is that really benevolent extraterrestrials haven't just landed on the planet because they are a lot more sensitive and wise about where they put their feet and who might be in their footprints and whether they're going to be squashing microbes on another planet by putting their feet in the wrong place. Benevolent, wise, insightful extraterrestrials are trying to meet in the right way. And beings that are malevolent, that don't care, that would like to squash as many butterflies as possible, of course, they have been interacting. But you need to know that there has been like a decision that was made by extraterrestrial technology that goddess said basically, I don't want for you to repeat the mistakes of the past. You're not going to take what I am and bring it down to the surface of Earth. So what is on the surface of Earth is technology that is terrestrial. It was investigated from first principles. That means the very first people had to figure out how to make simple tools like a lever and a wheel and an axle, and then get more and more sophisticated and learn how to smelt metal, and all the way up to what we presently have in terms of satellites and cell phone technology. However, what is built on Earth can be and has been influenced by extraterrestrial technology. So extraterrestrial technology users, even though they're not allowed to bring exotic technology to the surface of Earth, they can bring the idea of exotic technology to Earth and then apply it to an earthly factory. And this is really where we are getting a lot of the chemicals and some of the chemical processes from. It's not a good thing. The beings that are doing this are beings that are not ethical. They do not care about how much their vibration is affecting or having a negative impact on other beings. They only care about serving their own needs. So it's like saying, well, I'll come to your planet and I'll take the resources that I want, and I don't care if it hurts you or hurts the planet, because it's going to keep me alive. That's not okay, because when we really dilate our identity and we say we are the totality, we are this whole giant body that we're living in. So it's not okay for the cells of the liver to take energy away from the cells of the big toe, and then the cells of the tongue die. Like, that's not okay. And what we've been experiencing up until this point is squabbling on the playground by all the different beings that live in this galaxy. Galaxy is supposed to be like a body where all of the organs act together. And the idea that there are any spacefaring races that use technology that are having a negative impact on Earth and the development of Earth's culture and the development of the consciousness of the beings that live on Earth is totally inappropriate. That's like your liver cells attacking your big toe cells. Why in the world should advanced race that uses technology fly in their clank metal spaceships and come to Earth and use that technology to harm or reduce consciousness in any way? They shouldn't, yet they have. And I go into this extensively in the Galactic History series, why they have done so and what to do. The basic answer is just like DNA. So I said to you, chlorophyll is an artifice, but not an evil artifice, if we are defining evil as notes that are not according to the great harmonic composer's score. Same thing with DNA. Do you know that DNA is a form of technology? It's an artifice. When I make a painting, it's art. It's an artifice. It's not naturally occurring. I did it intentionally. Same thing with DNA. All of our DNA and the idea of DNA was created intentionally, and it was created according to the harmonic proportions of the cosmos. It was created according to that great musical score. And it was designed as a way of transferring information, like writing down music, a way of saving information over the ages. So we can currently listen to music that was written 400 years ago, even though Bach isn't really here to play it for us, because Bach wrote it down and someone else is musically literate and read it 400 years later. So this is what is going on with DNA. That DNA is a way of preserving in stasis and transferring aspects of consciousness down the timelines between generations. And now you're starting to understand the idea of spores. Spores are consciousness in stasis, ideas that are in a state of suspended animation that can jump off of their cultural petri dish and move through the atmosphere of time and find a new cultural petri dish or a new uncultured petri dish to occupy and affect. And the great composer is the person that determines where that new petri dish is. If you're a spore or an idea flying through the air, there's a great composer that says, little spore, fly over here. Here's a planet that needs your influence. So, I, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I am like a musician and I'm playing my music. I'm playing the vibrating strings of my DNA, and I'm having an impact on all of the other consciousnesses that are on the planet, all of the other consciousnesses that are not on the planet. I'm having an impact on this galaxy and on all galaxies. And I know I only have a few more minutes left, but this is because of the stellar network. Brief pause. So the stellar network, these are the extraterrestrials that you actually want to interact with, okay? This is how you travel naturally without artifice, without technology. You travel on pure consciousness utilizing light. Every star is a stargate. Every star has at its center a singularity or a connection to infinity or to the zeroth dimension. Stars are not just a nuclear furnace emitting photons. They're like a doorway through which energy is flowing outward. And at a certain point, the flow of energy will reverse, and that energy will be then flowing inward. And this is known as a black hole. This is the network of consciousness. Time flowing outward from a star and being emitted as light and photons and being experienced as our lives. Our lives are emitted by the sun and by the stellar network. And then when it's time for us to travel, we don't get into a clank metal vehicle. We travel on pure starlight. We use our wings of consciousness, and our fuel is unconditional love. These are all things that you can't buy in a store. These are all things that you cannot develop with money from the Department of Defense. I know it's the end of this broadcast, but I hope that you will continue to tune in, because this is where you learn how to fly on wings of consciousness. Thank you so much.